Hello students and all the viewers looking into this presentation. So today you are welcome to the E-Pathshala under the subject Biophysics. Giving an introduction about myself, I am Dr. Sangeeta Sembal, working under the Ministry of Electronics and IT as a scientist. So I am going to talk about introduction of the semiconductors. To start with that, before we start, we should understand what is semiconductor and what is basically the requirement of semiconductor. For that, we need to understand the importance of electronics. I hope you all are aware with the term electronics. So in our daily life, if you look into the things, everything is associated with electronics. The moment you get up in the morning, the moment you sleep, in between also, like everything you see is associated with electronics. For example, your alarm clock, your mobile phones, your mobile chargers, your remote control of the TV sets, and the moment you go on the road, you will see that everything is associated with the electronics. For example, the traffic signals also. So these are basically controlled by the electronics. If you look into the electronics, that becomes important to understand what is electronics. You can split this word, the electronics, into two parts. One is electron, another is mechanics. That is, electronics is basically the branch of science where you try to understand the mechanics or the movement of an electron into any medium. That medium can be vacuum, that medium can be a gas, or that can be any material. So basically, idea is to understand how an electron moves into the medium. So based on that, in electronics, we try to design number of components, number of systems, number of devices, and we just try to understand how these devices are fabricated in the electronics. If you look into the history, the fabrication of the devices and the fabrication of these electronic components started long back into the 19th century with the resistor. We'll discuss that in detail. So, but before that, I would like to give you a brief introduction about what a semiconductor. A semiconductor is basically a material. I'll define what is semiconductor. But nowadays, every electronic industry, if you look into the any industry, they use semiconductor materials for the fabrication of electronic devices. The objective of my presentation will be like in the following manner. In this particular module, we'll try to understand what are the semiconductors, and these will be discussed in the detail. The major objectives are basically what is semiconductor, and why semiconductors are used for the electronics devices, fabrication of electronic devices. To understand that, it becomes necessary to understand what is the atomic structure, because most of the time whenever you talk about any material, it is fabricated by using a material, and any material can be only understood by the basic concepts, and those basic concepts come from the atomic structure. Based on that, we'll see how these materials are divided into different categories. The first can be metal, insulators, and further can be divided into the third category, that is semiconductors. Further, we'll try to understand how these semiconductors, which are actually defined before that, will be divided into different categories. So classification of the semiconductors will be based on different criteria that we'll discuss, and then we will try to understand some facts about the semiconductor, important facts about the semiconductor, and then we'll try to understand how these semiconductors are affected by some of the important parameters. Then an important term known as a doping will be discussed in detail. Based on that, we'll try to understand what is a majority and the minority carrier. Then we will try to understand like what is wide band gap semiconductor. I know it is a difficult term, but slowly we'll understand about that part also. And then further we will try to understand that direct and the indirect band semiconductors are defined in a different manner. Lastly, we'll try to understand what is an electron effective mass, and we'll conclude the session with that. So start with, we will talk about why semiconductors are used for any electronic industry. As we said in the beginning itself, if you look into the electronics, it is everywhere. So ideally, if you start with your computers, your laptops, your palm tops, or any intelligent material, so ideally these are based on the simple semiconductor material, which is given a name silicon. So ideally, silicon is the backbone of electronic industry. all the ICs means integrated circuits, all the CMOS, MOSFETs are based on the silicon material. So further defining it, we'll see that even the cell phones which you are using, earlier the pagers were used, these are also based on the silicon materials. There are some other materials which are known as the gallium arsenide, that is also a part of semiconductor, we'll discuss it later. So any compound material can be used for this purpose. CD players, your TV remote, satellite dishes, fiber network, traffic signals, tube lights, even the airbags which you are using in your cars for the safety purpose are based on the electronics. So now we'll see what is actually, to start with we have to understand what was the history of semiconductor. If you look into the 19th century, around 1826, we first discussed about what is a resistor. I hope you understand what is a resistor. A resistor is a simple material which actually obstruct the flow of current. So these were discussed earlier in the 1826. Further, with the progress of science, we understood the concept or the physics behind the vacuum tubes. So those were developed in the early 20th century, but slowly the physics was understood and more progress were made in the electronics. Now if you look into that, earlier most of the electronic devices were based on the vacuum tubes. The main problem with the vacuum tubes were those were very bulky, those were consuming high power, high voltage. So the scientists or the researchers thought, how can we overcome that problem? So they thought that this can be overcome by using a material which is known as a semiconductor. So based on that, slowly progress were made, and that progress was actually in such a way that it brought the revolution in the electronics. So before that, like we go into the depth of the semiconductor, what is a semiconductor, it becomes necessary to understand what is a atomic structure. Why it is important? Because as I said, any material which we discuss for the fabrication of devices is having a basic composition. That basic composition depends upon the atom, as you all know that this atom is basically important. Why? Because you need to understand what is the atomic structure of our atom, what is actually an important term which is known as the valence electron, and then what is ionization, what is free electron, and how the conduction takes place in an atom. So if you look into this atomic structure, as I said, the atom is the smallest particle of any element which contains three basic particles, as you all know, electron, proton and neutron. Neutron is uncharged, like that is neutral particle, but the main important particle of an atom is electron, which plays a significant role in any electronic devices. So now we will try to understand what is electron, what is valence electron, what is free electron, and how a conduction takes place in atom. So just look into the electronic configuration of any atom. All of you know that proton and neutron resides in the nucleus, and the electron revolves around the nucleus in a particular shells. That is, shell are given a different name, K, L, M, N, and depending upon a specific rule, you know how many electrons can remain in the particular electronic shell. So ideally, if you look into the outermost shell of any atom, the electrons in the outermost shell are known as the valence electrons. So these valence electrons are basically used for any conduction. So if you want to remove an electron from any atom, you need to give some external energy. So external energy is basically defined as the potential. So how much energy you have to give, that will be defined as a potential. So if to understand it more, we'll just try to understand with the figure shown in the slide. You'll see that there is a nucleus, there are electronic shells. In the outermost shell, there is an electron, one electron or many electrons depending upon the atomic structure or atomic number of the atom. So atomic number is basically how many electrons are there in the atom. So depending upon that, we define different valence band, that is the outermost shell, that is known as a band. The overlapping of the levels are called band basically. And now if you look into that, depending upon that, we will define there are energy bands. So quantum physics, quantum mechanics says there is a discrete energy bands. So discrete means a specific value of energy can be assigned to a particular band. So depending upon that, how this valence band and the above level of that, which is known as a conduction band, we define materials into the three different categories. The first category is known as the conductors, next is insulators, and the final is semiconductors. So if you want to understand what is conductors, if you have a valence band and electron is there, so if you give some energy, the electron can actually leave its shell and can jump to the next orbit. So basically, which conducts easily, those materials which can actually conduct easily the electric current are known as the conductors. So the best conductors we know are basically the copper, silver, gold. So these are the single element materials, and the basic property or the main specific feature of any conductor material is the valence electrons are very loosely bound to the atom. So this is the reason we call it as a free electron. Now coming to the insulators, if you have a material in which the electrons are tightly bound to the nucleus, that is, that they don't conduct electrical current under the normal conditions, are called insulators. So these valence electrons are tightly bound to the atoms, so basically there are less free electrons. If you look into the examples of insulators, you have different things which are given, which are actually defined into this category. For example, rubber, plastic, glass, mica and quartz. So important thing here is to note, there is a material which is actually defined in between the conductors and the insulators. Conductors, as we understood, is a material which has number of free electrons. The electrons are loosely bound. Insulators are where electrons are tightly bound. In between there is a material which is known as a semiconductor. Semi means in between. So ideally semiconductors are the materials whose electrical properties lie in between conductors and the insulators. Like most famous examples of the semiconductors are silicon and germanium. Semiconductors in its pure state, I'll define what is actually the pure state, that is also known as the intrinsic state, is neither a good conductor nor a good insulator. But they contain, if you look into the periodic table, they contain 4 valence electrons. So ideally, to understand more about semiconductors, we have to look into the energy band diagram of a material. Some materials have a filled valence band just like insulator, but a small gap to the conduction band. As you give some heat to the material, so there is a change in the process. So at 0 degree Kelvin, if you look into the material, it behaves like a insulator, but as you bring it to the room temperature, some of the electron may acquire some energy and can jump to the conduction band. So this energy can be provided into the form of heat or electrical energy. So ideally, if you have a material in which electrons are jumped from valence band to the conduction band, so we call it as a semiconductor if there is a small conduction at room temperature. So to show this distinction between the semiconductor and insulator, there are energy band diagrams. Energy band diagrams are basically, if you plot EK diagram and you show the valence band and the conduction band on the x and y axis, you will see that basically the difference between the valence band and conduction band is a criteria to define a material. If this band gap, that is the distance between the valence band and the conduction band, this is known as a band gap. So that is also known as a forbidden energy band gap. So if this forbidden energy band gap is large, that is, it is of the order of 3-4 electron volt, so then we call it as a insulator. But if this band gap is of the order of 1 electron volt, or if it is overlapping, so the different names are given. For example, 1 to 2 electron volt band gap is for the semiconductors, but if this band gap is overlapping, then we call it as a conductor. So there is a criteria, I think you all have understood. If a band gap of 3 electron volt is there, we call it as a conductor. If the band gap is of the order of 1 to 2 electron volt, we call it as a semiconductor. And then if there is a overlapping, we call it as a conductor. So conductors, semiconductors and the insulators. So depending upon the band gap, we define 3 types of the material. So this is also a criteria to define the 3 materials. Insulators, semiconductors and conductors can be defined into the category of their conductivity. As you know, if there is a large conduction in the material, that is kept into the category of conductors. If there is no conduction at the room temperature, that is called insulator. But if in between is there, like the conductivity lies in between the conductors and the insulator, we call it as a semiconductor. So now if you look into the periodic table, The fourth group elements, as we said, the valence electrons like in the semiconductors are basically the material which have 4 valence electron are the semiconductor material. So based on that, the periodic table says the fourth group elements are the material which are kept into the category of semiconductor materials. So now you will say that only the material which are there in the fourth group are the semiconductor materials. No, this is not the criteria. We will understand further that there is another way of making a semiconductor material. If you have a material which is a combination of third and fifth compound, is also known as the semiconductor. So based on that, we can say that we have different types of semiconductor. One can be a elemental semiconductor, that is a pure element from the fourth group, like silicon, germanium, polonium, or carbon, boron. These are also known as a semiconductor materials. Not only fourth group, but the single element materials are called elemental semiconductors. But if you have a combination of two materials and that gives you a semiconductor properties, is also known as a semiconductor and given a name, a compound semiconductor. If you have chosen two materials, two elements, that is called binary semiconductor. For example, gallium from the third group, arsenide from the fifth group. If you have a combination of that, it becomes a compound semiconductor. For example, you have a aluminium from third group and nitride from the fifth group. So aluminium nitride is also semiconductor. So depending upon how you choose the material from different groups are used for the fabrication or the formation of compound semiconductors. Similar way, we have the ternary semiconductor also, and we have tertiary also. So you can make a semiconductor by using a single element, or you can make a compound semiconductor material. So how to define, how to find out which material is used for which property? So basically we will try to understand in the next modules also that how these properties are defined based on the specific semiconductor. If you look into the possible semiconductor materials, as we discussed in the last slide also, so basically the elemental semiconductors are the carbon, silicon, germanium, tin, lead. These are the materials which are commonly used for different applications. It is mentioned in the list, you can just look into that. But if we talk about the main electronics industry, I'll just emphasize on that the silicon is a material which is widely used, versatilely used for the fabrication of electronics devices. The reason is definitely it is a very cheap material, it is actually extracted from the sand, then it can be obtained in the ultra high purity, and if you look into any IC industry, that is integrated circuits, if you use for different applications, it shows amazing properties and it is perfect for that purpose. As we discussed till now, the electron volt, it becomes important to understand what is electron volt. We have till now discussed about the band gap of a conductor, semiconductor, insulator. So what is electron volt? Basically this is the energy absorbed by electron when it is subjected to the 1 volt difference of potential. So ideally, if you give any energy to the valence band electron, it jumps to the conduction band, it has to overcome the forbidden energy gap. Then only there will be a conduction. So based on that, we understood that different materials can be divided into different categories, and the conduction takes place based on how much energy is required to jump from valence band to the conduction band. So now, as we have understood that the semiconductors are the material whose conductivity lies between the conductors and the insulators, but there are some parameters which can actually modify the conductivity of semiconductors. As we have understood, at room temperature, semiconductors hardly conduct. So if you keep on increasing the temperature, the conductivity of the semiconductor material also increases. That is actually a very good property that is used for different purposes. But how does it happen? We have to understand that this heat which we provide as energy, it actually provides energy to the electron, and these electron overcome the barrier between the valence band and the conduction band, and they actually conducts in the material. So they becomes the charge carriers. And what is charge carrier? Basically which carries the charge with them and conducts for the electrical current. Another way of increasing the conductivity of any semiconductor material can be that you may add a impurity to the material. This is a very important phenomena. I think we need to understand how this impurity adding increases the conductivity of any semiconductor material. So ideally, if you want to define a impurity adding process to the semiconductor, this complete process is called doping. ideally doping is actually giving you some idea that you are doping a pure material, that is an intrinsic semiconductor, with a particular element. So ideally if you add a element, a specific element, and it is added to the intrinsic semiconductor, it gives rise to a different semiconductor which is given a name extrinsic semiconductor. So what material you are adding and how much quantity should be added, that is also specified. Basically the material which are added or which are doped with the intrinsic semiconductors are third group elements or the fifth group element, for example boron, arsenic, phosphorus, and they actually modify and enhance the electrical properties of any semiconductor material. If you look at the graph of the like how the temperature changes the conductivity of a semiconductor material, it clearly shows as you keep on increasing the temperature of a material, the conductivity also increases, and it increases exponentially. That is a very good phenomenon. This is used for number of applications. So we'll discuss it later, how this generates number of free electrons and holes into the material. So depending upon like how the properties of a semiconductor material can be modified, as we said, doping is a process by which we can modify the conductivity of a material, and how like a material is added to that specified material will give rise to the different types of semiconductor. One is N-type, another is P-type. What is N-type, P-type? We'll discuss it. So basically as we said, the doping is a process of creating N or P-type semiconductor material. The moment you add an impurity to a silicon or a germanium, pure semiconductor, it will change the conductivity of the material. But how much should be added, that is also decided, as we said earlier. So how much quantity is added to this particular material will give rise to the like highly concentrated materials, or basically if you are adding a 1 atom of an impurity to the 10 to the power 8 atoms of silicon, that is called doping. So don't assume that you have to add a like few kilograms intrinsic semiconductor is added with some few grams of the material. No, it is nothing like that. Only technically if you are talking about 1 atom of impurity is added to 10 to the power 8, that is millions of atoms of silicon or germanium, that is enough for generating a impure or a extrinsic semiconductor. So basically based on that, which material we are using a third group element or a fifth group element, that is called trivalent or the pentavalent material, we get N-type or P-type materials. If you look into the examples of the N-type impurities, that are like pentavalent impurities, that is phosphorus, arsenic, antimony and the bismuth. If you look into the P-type impurity, that gives rise to the P-type semiconductors, those are aluminium, gallium, boron and indium. So if you look into the extrinsic semiconductor, how the conduction takes place, that becomes very important. Actually the idea is there are charge carriers generated into the extrinsic semiconductor. Those charge carriers can be divided into two categories. One can be an electron, another can be hole. What is hole? Basically hole shows a vacancy of electron. That is, if an electron is moved from valence band to the conduction band, that is basically conducting, but it leaves behind a vacancy which is having a positive charge. That is a void there which is having a equal charge opposite to the electron charge. As electron is a negatively charged material, so hole is carrying a positive charge. So basically the conduction in any semiconductor materials is because of two charge carriers. One is electron, another is hole. Electron is a negative material and hole is a positive material, positive charge carrier. So basically we say that the charge carriers in a semiconductor depends upon how many electrons and how many holes are there to conduct. So if you define an N-type semiconductor, as we said, if you have an intrinsic semiconductor, for example silicon we are taking, it has 4 electrons into the valence band, and 4 electrons are actually covalently bound with the another 4 electrons of any other atom. So all the atoms, all the electrons of a silicon atoms are satisfied. But the moment you put an impurity in that, for example N-type impurity, it will have 5 valence electrons in that. So the 4 electrons or the impurity will make bonds with the 4 electrons of the silicon, but 1 electron will remain extra. So this valence electron, that 1 extra electrons will become a charge carrier and that will conduct. So basically in a N-type semiconductor material, the conduction is because of electrons, and that is negatively charged. That is the reason we call it as a n-type or the negative type semiconductors. Similar way, if you have a p-type semiconductor, for example you are taking aluminium or you are taking a boron. So the moment you put a impurity, p-type impurity, in a pure semiconductor of silicon, the 3 valence electron of a impurity make bonds with the 4 electrons of the silicon, but still 1 electron of the silicon remains unsatisfied, and because of that you need 1 more electron to make this orbit complete. So that is the reason there is a vacancy, and that there is a positive charge which is required to complete this orbit. So ideally what we call it is, this vacancy of electron gives rise to the p-type semiconductors. So ideally when our silicon is doped with the phosphorus, it becomes n-type, that is a 5th group element, in which electrical current is basically carried by the negatively charged electrons. That's the reason it has been given a name n-type. But when electron is doped with the boron, that is a 3rd group element, it becomes a p-type semiconductor, and in which the electric current is carried by the positively charged holes. So if you look into the figure, it is clearly showing that electron is basically the extra electron and which is carrying the current, whereas in a p-type semiconductor material there is a vacancy and the charge is carried by the p-type material. So there are majority and the minority charge carriers. Based upon that we get different things. As we said, like there are different other semiconductor materials also. We can divide into the different categories, elemental and the compound. If you have a single element from periodic table, you call it as a elemental semiconductors. But if you have a combination of a 3rd and 5th group element, or the 2nd and the 6th group element, that also gives rise to a semiconductor materials, and we call it as a compound semiconductor materials. But there are different categories into that compound semiconductors. If you have a only 2 elements combined together, that gives rise to the binary semiconductors, compound semiconductors. If you have a 3 element compound, that is called ternary, and if you have a 4th group 4 elements combined, that's quaternary. And similar way you will see in next modules that these particular materials, semiconductor materials, have different applications. So basically the compound semiconductor materials are used for the high communication purposes, and like elemental semiconductors like your silicon and germanium, these are used for the integrated circuits, and these are used for different applications. For example, if you look into the gallium arsenide, which is a binary compound semiconductor, it is basically used for the high frequency applications and in communication. So if you try to understand what is a semiconductor, there are some important things which we discussed now. There is a wide variety of electronic and optical properties of these semiconductors. Depending upon for which particular application we are looking for, we need to go for that specific semiconductor. As we have already discussed, silicon and germanium are widely used for the development of transistors, diodes, rectifiers, transistors, integrated circuit. And what are those things? In the next module, we are going to discuss about the PN junction diode, which is actually the backbone of all these things. Similar way, the compound semiconductors, as we discussed, binary, ternary, quaternary, these are used for the different high speed applications, and they require emission of the absorption of light. One important term becomes necessary to understand when we discuss the semiconductor material, that is known as effective mass. What is effective mass? You know, every particle of any atom has some particular mass. For example, if you have an electron, you know electron has a rest mass. Rest mass means when it is independent from the interaction from the periodic potential of the lattice. So that is given a name for rest mass of electron, 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg. But when in any you discuss an electron or hole in a semiconductor material, it is not free. Basically it is influenced by the periodic potential of the lattice. So if you consider all those forces which affect the movement or the mass of the electron in the medium, electron or hole in the medium, that new terms is given a name effective mass. This basically effective mass is a parameter which may differ appreciably from the mass of a free electron, and which depends upon to what extent the position of the particle in any band is defined, which actually changes the mobility and becomes a resulting current. What is mobility? Mobility is basically the velocity of any charge carrier in presence of electric field. If you look into the table, it defines how the effective mass of an electron or a hole changes in the different materials, and that is a criteria of selecting any material for any particular application. I think by this time you must have understood what a semiconductor material is and how these can be divided into different categories. But before we conclude, I would like to give you one more idea about there is one more term which is given a name: direct band semiconductors and the indirect band semiconductors. These direct and indirect band semiconductors are used for different applications. I won't go into the detail of those things, that becomes very technical, but I would like to give you some idea about what is those things. Actually, if you look into the energy band diagrams of any material, that is not the straight line. If you look into the shape of energy band diagrams, those are actually the parabolic shapes, and that parabolic shapes gives a clear idea about how this can be divided into different categories again. Direct band semiconductors are the material in which the valence band and the conduction band, their top and the bottom lie in the same line. I know it is difficult to understand, but it is important to know. Actually, the direct band semiconductors are used for optical applications. Silicon is not a direct band semiconductor. That is a basic problem in any LED, light emitting diodes, or any application. You will find that silicon cannot be used for that purpose. Whereas a material such as the compound semiconductors, for example gallium arsenide, this can be very well used for that particular application, and that is a direct band semiconductor. We will try to understand that more in the next modules. So we just conclude that in any electronic industry, semiconductors play a significant role, and most of the devices fabricated today are based on these materials. So we try to understand what is actually semiconductor, and we try to understand what is the concept of a band gap and how different semiconductors can be developed, and doping is also explored, how doping can be done into the material. And with this, I'll say that it becomes necessary that these concepts of the understanding of semiconductor devices, which we'll discuss in the next module, are taken seriously. Thank you. With that, I'll just conclude it.